Hey everybody, this is GGB. I'm sorry this is going to be coming out a tad late for the first game. It should be fine for all the other ones, though. We got college basketball upset of the day, Thursday edition. I'm excited. I'm actually kind of hyped. I'm kind of hyped for these games. I think we got some good chances of upsets. We got 2 straight days of upsets. I guessed none of them right. That kind of hurt. We were close yesterday to legitimately having 4 upsets. DePaul had they only lost by 1 point. They had a legitimate chance of upsetting Xavier. They just missed their final shot, which was an open 3-point shot, so you couldn't have asked for a better look if you're DePaul. Texas A&M blew a double-digit point lead against Kentucky to lose really their control. They were number 2, and they were right behind Texas A&M. They were right behind Auburn. Really, Auburn got a huge favor by Kentucky beating Texas A&M. But let's get into the games we got today. We have multiple conferences going on, even a little bit of West Coast Conference action. We got Gonzaga playing. But at 4 o'clock, we got Georgetown, which is at 6-8 at number 21 Providence. Providence sits at 14-2. Providence favored by 13.5 points on FS1. At 6 o'clock at number 4 Purdue, Purdue fits at 15-2, by the way, travels to Indiana, which is at 13-4. Purdue is favored by 3.5 points on FS1. At 6:30, we got number 16 USC, which is at 14-2, traveling to Colorado, which is at 12-4. USC favored by 1.5 points on the Pac-12 network. At 8 o'clock, we got number 25 UConn, which is at 12-4, traveling to Butler, which is at 9-8. UConn favored by 8.5 points on FS1. 10 o'clock, we got San Francisco, one of the surprises of the year from the West Coast Conference. The Dons sit at 15-3, traveling to number 1 Gonzaga, which is at 14-2. Gonzaga favored by 16 points on CBS Sports Network. At 10 o'clock, we got number 3 Arizona, which is at 14-1, traveling to Stanford, which is at 10-5. Arizona favored by 9 points on ESPNU. And last 10 o'clock game, we got number 9 UCLA traveling, which is at 11-2, traveling to Utah, which is at 8-10. UCLA favored by 9.5 points on FS1. So let's start with the Big East with these ones. We got 2 Big East games. They're probably not going to be the best games in the world, but you have Georgetown, which is last place in the Big East, traveling to Providence, which is first place. So again, this matters a good amount in the Big East, right? Any game that Providence plays in is a pretty significant game for this team. The Friars sit at 4-1 in conference, 14-2 overall. And again, 4-1, they're in the lead thanks to a Marquette upset of Villanova last night on a last-second 3-point shot. Providence is in first place, so a win here would keep them in first place. A loss here drops you to 4-2, and suddenly you're in the muck, right? Villanova would take sole possession of first place, but suddenly Providence drops down to a tie with Xavier for second place, and not to mention UConn with a win today would also move up to that second place. So suddenly you would be in the thick of it. Instead of having sole possession of first place, you would have a tie for second, which is obviously not ideal for the Friars. A win by Georgetown also would put them at 1-3. That puts you in second to last place instead of dead last if you're the Hoyas. You would pass DePaul, which is arguably a better team, so that's kind of interesting there. DePaul, who I think is way better than the record indicates. At 1-6 in conference, I think they're a way better team than that in-conference record indicates. They beat Seton Hall. They should have beaten Xavier. And if we're talking about Xavier, they're third best team in the Big East right now. I think they're playing like the 4th best team in the Big East. I think it's hard to argue that Marquette's not playing as one of the best teams in the Big East right now. But I think DePaul, I don't think DePaul is better than Creighton or UConn or Seton Hall or anything crazy like that. But I do legitimately believe DePaul is better than Georgetown. I do legitimately believe DePaul is better than Butler. And I do legitimately believe DePaul might be better than St. John's. I really like what DePaul's been doing. I think they're a legitimately underrated squad, but let's move on from that. Butler with a win would move, because they're playing UConn tonight. UConn with a win, by the way, moves them into a tie. Depending on how things work out, they could either be in a tie for second or a tie for third. Regardless, great news for UConn. I guess if you're a Xavier or a Marquette fan, you'd love UConn to lose here. Ideally for you, UConn loses. Because that would drop them to 3-3, which would then drop them below Creighton. So again, if you're a Creighton fan, great opportunity there. You wouldn't drop below St. John's, but St. John's would get a little bit closer. So obviously, if you're a St. John's fan, you would love a UConn upset of Butler upsetting UConn today. A Butler upset of UConn would move them past Seton Hall, which is at 2. They're tied 2 and 4. Third to last, Butler would move past them and get fourth to last, and Seton Hall would be sitting alone at third to last. So, interesting thing there if Butler's able to pull it off against. Who's playing? They're playing UConn. I'm sorry. And then you got the Big Ten action. We got one game in the Big Ten we got going on, and then we got to talk a little bit about the West Coast Conference, and we got to talk a little bit about the Pac-12, but we'll talk about this one game. Purdue is playing Indiana. And if you do not know, Purdue, despite being considered the fourth best team in the entire country, right? Fourth best team, they are in sixth place in the Big Ten. If you did not, it's pretty crazy in my opinion. Wisconsin and Illinois are tied for first place in the Big Ten. Michigan State's about half a game behind. They just haven't played their game yet, but if they win, they'll be there as well. They'll be tied for first. So Michigan, it's really a 3-team race right now. Ohio State's only a game. Ohio State and Rutgers are both only a game behind. Purdue's a game and a half behind. If they tie here, I mean, if Purdue's able to win this game against Indiana, right? Then they would move to 5-2 until suddenly they're tied for fourth place. They would have the better record overall, so they pass everyone in that regard. They pass Ohio State and Rutgers in that respect. So it's going to be interesting. Purdue definitely needs a win here if they want to stay in the Big Ten Conference, though. Big Ten Conference race. A win for Indiana would be rather significant here. You'd pass Purdue. Purdue would fall to 4-3, by the way, and Indiana would move to 5-3. And suddenly Indiana's sitting in sixth place in conference. So, I mean, big game here. If Indiana is to lose this game, they haven't, lost any standing, right? They would fall to 4-4, which would be 500, right? You would only lose... you would lose your ground against Purdue, but you don't, Iowa and Penn State are both sitting at 3-4, which are the next teams below them, right? And Penn's, they're a little bit below 500, so if you get your 500 record, you haven't fallen past them yet. So interesting part there about Purdue and Indiana, them playing. So that's the Big Ten for you. Purdue and Indiana could both use a win. Indiana with a win would get to sixth place and pass Purdue so they could add a seventh place for them. Purdue with a win would get into a tie with fourth. So big game there. Let's move on to the Pac-12 where we got two significantly pretty solid, pretty huge games. We got USC and Arizona. Actually, three pretty huge games. USC, Arizona, UCLA, and Colorado. The top four teams in the Pac-12 are all playing tonight. Arizona is going to be playing Stanford, which Stanford is the number 6 team. So that's the only team that's really at the top. The top half of the Pac-12 is all playing tonight. So USC is playing Colorado, right? You're seeing the number 3 team in the conference playing that. Actually, these teams are both tied for third place in the conference. Both have a 4-2 record. UCLA has the tiebreaker considering the fact they have a better. USC has a better overall record with 14-2. Colorado only has a 12-4 record. But with a win here, whoever wins this game takes sole possession of. They take sole possession of third place. They're also in a 3-way tie, by the way, for third place with Oregon. Oregon has obviously turned their season around, 5-game winning streak, longest win streak in the Pac-12. So it's really interesting going on in the Pac-12 between these top 5 teams. And this determines who's in third place. Whoever loses this game falls tied for third place, and they fall into a distinct 5th place category, which is not great for any of these teams. For the Arizona-Stanford game, Arizona obviously sits at the top of the conference, and UCLA would love an upset with Stanford tonight. Stanford, with a win, would move to 4-2. And would likely they would pass whoever loses the USC Colorado game. So that I revised that. You fall to 6th place, depending on who wins here tonight, and it depends on if Washington plays. Also, Washington plays Oregon State today at 10:30. So legitimately, you could be putting yourself in just an absolutely horrendous place. Whoever loses that game between USC and Colorado, because you could legitimately see them falling from tied from third So let's say Colorado beats USC. USC could fall from 3rd place right now, fall past Colorado, fall past Oregon, fall past Stanford, fall past Washington, and that would put you in 7th place in the Pac-12. So you could be going from tied from 3rd tonight to 7th place in the Pac-12 in the matter of a couple of hours. So really huge game going on in USC Colorado, and I don't think it's all that unlikely. I think Stanford is a really good team together, and Oregon State is a bad team. Washington should win that one. So it's really kind of interesting here going on the Pac-12. It's fascinating. But with a loss, Arizona, and a UCLA win, Arizona would then have to share first place of the Pac-12 with UCLA. Arizona win obviously would keep them in first place. A Stanford win would move you to 4-2, and you would be tied for third place, likely with Oregon. Actually, tied for fourth place, likely with Oregon and Washington after tonight. Let's see if Oregon plays tonight. Oregon actually might play tonight, so that might change things as well. No, they play on Sunday. So, if you're a Stanford fan, you could be tied for fourth today. So I mean, like that's a pretty solid move up. And then you got UCLA playing Utah. Obviously, if you are a fan of USC, Colorado, Oregon, you could fall far. Legitimately, UCLA, which sits at 3-1. If Utah's able to pull off the massive upset, they move to 2-7, by the way, which would pass Oregon State for last place. They would move out of last place in the conference. Again, this is an unlikely scenario, but if you're talking about it, UCLA could legitimately fall from second place in the Pac-12 all the way below USC, Colorado, Oregon, Stanford, and Washington if they all win tonight, right? And even if whoever loses the USC-Colorado game, UCLA could end up falling legitimately, again, past all these teams. A 4-3 record is a better record than a 3-2 record. And then suddenly, you're in 7th place in the conference. So UCLA, again, needs a win here. With a win, you would move to 4-1 and have a chance of being tied for first place. So big game there as well. And then finally, one last one in the West Coast Conference, and you got Gonzaga playing San Francisco. San Francisco's 2-1 in conference play. The last game they played was a 2-point loss to BYU, which BYU, by the way, does not exactly at the bottom of the conference. BYU is second place in conference, tied for second place actually with San Diego. San Diego being one of those teams that likely won't be up there all that long. But it's really interesting here, right? Gonzaga, obviously, number one team in the entire country. But San Francisco is a team that is a little bit scary, especially considering you got them away, which, again, both these teams haven't played away a lot. San Francisco is 1-0 away, I guess, and so is Gonzaga. Both these teams have not played a lot out of their home field. If it's not like if it's not like a neutral field, a neutral court, but the Dons are a legitimate team this year. They're interesting. I love watching the Dons play. They're really surprised to me. There's been a lot of surprises this year. They joined Miami and Texas A&M, some of my surprise teams of the year. A team that I didn't expect to be all that good. Normally San Francisco's decent. They're normally third or fourth team in that conference, and so close almost every year to upsetting either Gonzaga or BYU, right? But that's all they come. They always call them so close, but we'll see if they could actually do something this year. It'd be kind of interesting. Let me give you my pick. Personally, I've got to go. I just have to go with them. I think Indiana has the best shot. I think they have the best team built together. I understand they're playing the best team on this thing. I think Purdue's a better team than Arizona. Sorry, controversial opinion there. I think Purdue's a better basketball team than Arizona. Obviously, a better football team too. But Purdue's a really good basketball team, but so is Indiana. Indiana's a team that I think is going to be a 5 or 6 seed this year. This is a team that is quietly still in this race in the Big Ten, and I got to go with the Indiana here. I came close to picking Colorado because I do think they're a good basketball team, but I think USC is a little bit too strong for them. And I did also come so close to picking a massive upset, but I just think 16 points is a little bit too much for me to go with San Francisco here, but I just got to go with Indiana over Purdue. I'm going to trust my gut, although I sure hope it works out, because otherwise I'm going to be sitting at half a point, at best 1 point, heading into Friday picks, which is not good at all. But everybody, this is GGB saying adios amigos. I hope I get this right.